Thank you. Mr. President, dear Vladimir, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. One of my first international trips after I became Prime Minister of the Netherlands last summer was to Zaporizhzhia, was to Ukraine. It was an experience I will never forget. I spoke to veterans, I visited an underground school, and I saw with my own eyes the devastating impact of war. But what struck me above all was the bravery and the resilience of the Ukraine armed forces and the Ukrainian people. For 3 years now, you have resisted the most brutal and fierce attacks by the Russian aggressor. Fighting for freedom, fighting for independence, fighting for the right to shape your own future. The government and people of the Netherlands admire you greatly for that. The purpose of that first visit was very clear: to reaffirm that the Netherlands stand with Ukraine and that we will continue to do so. But today, I can only repeat that message, also on behalf of His Majesty the King. Ukraine can count on our unwavering military, financial and political support, now and after the war, when justice must be done and Ukraine must recover. So it's good to see so many of you today. It shows that support for Ukraine remains strong and widespread. Today marks the start of the 4th year of the terrible war. Let us hope that it also marks the beginning of the end. In the past few turbulent weeks, we have been face to face with history. None of us can predict what will happen over the next few weeks and months. But whatever that may be, for the Netherlands, there can only be one outcome. And that is a just and lasting peace, both for Ukraine and for Europe. That means a peace that not only ends hostilities here and now, but also guarantees a safe future. That's why it's so important that Ukraine remains strong on the battlefield. Because we need peace through strength and not the enduring threat of war through weakness. And furthermore, it's crucial that your voice and our voices are heard in the negotiation process. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Nothing about Europe without Europe. Thank you, Vladimir, for inviting us to this summit. Thank you all for attending and showing your support. Let's keep working together towards the best possible outcome. Thank you, and Slava Ukraine.
І мені дуже приємно запросити до слова його високоповажність пана Джастіна Трюдо, прем'єр-міністра Канади. Канада займає особливе місце в серцях українців. Позиція Канади в групі G7 з початку повномасштабного вторгнення і, зокрема, у 2025 році під час канадського головування має важливе значення для успіху нашої боротьби. Прошу, пане прем'єр-міністре.
Bonjour, mes chers amis. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to my fellow leaders for your timely and salient remarks. And above all, thank you, Volodymyr, for hosting today's summit and for your courageous leadership as the duly elected democratic leader of this great nation. Since the start of Russia's full-scale illegal war of aggression 3 years ago, you've shown remarkable personal bravery, resilience, and resolve, a defiant spirit mirrored by the unbreakable Ukrainian people. You continue to inspire me and tens of millions of my fellow citizens back home in Canada. But let us be frank, you and the Ukrainian people should never have had to endure even a single day of this unjustified, brutal war, let alone 1,096 of them, or more accurately, over 4,000 of them since Russia illegally seized Crimea back in 2014. This is not a conflict Ukraine wanted, provoked, or asked for in any way. This is a war started for one reason and one reason only: Russia's desire to erase Ukrainian history and expand their empire. Russia's actions are nothing short of a direct attack against the rules-based international order, an order established in response to the most destructive war in our collective history, a war etched in the memory of the citizens of all of our respective nations for the past 80 years. An order which, albeit imperfect, ushered in the most peaceful and prosperous era in the history of humanity. We cannot go back. We cannot return to an era where might makes right. We must do everything in our power to enable Ukraine to secure a just and lasting peace, a peace that cannot be achieved without Ukrainians at the table. That is precisely what Canada is focused on. Canada has been a steadfast, unshakable partner to Ukraine since the beginning, and that will never, ever change. Le Canada est fier du travail qu'on a accompli avec vous tous autour de cette table pour faire que la Russie paye le prix de cette invasion inhumaine, que ce soit avec des sanctions ou en offrant aux Ukrainiens de l'aide humanitaire, financière et militaire dont ils ont besoin pour se défendre et faire obstacle au régime russe. But I know, we all know, there is more work to do. That is why I am announcing Canada will be providing 25 more LAV-3 infantry fighting vehicles to Ukraine. We will be delivering 2 armoured combat support vehicles which Ukrainian forces will be trained on shortly in Germany. Landing systems for F-16s were delivered just 2 months ago, and 4 F-16 flight simulators will be provided in the coming months. And that's on top of the millions of additional rounds of ammunition, components for drone cameras, and first aid kits. We're also dispersing the first installment of the $5 billion in assistance to Ukraine funded through revenues from frozen Russian assets, along with providing a grant to help Ukraine maintain its energy security in the wake of consistent, reckless attacks by Russia on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Throughout all this, we need to keep in mind the size of the human cost of the Russian aggression for the past 3 years. Ukrainians who've lost their lives fighting courageously for their land, children taken from their families and homes and communities, which is a disgusting war crime, and violence subjected to prisoners of war taken by Russia. Implementing the Montreal Pledge to address the human costs of the war, a declaration made at the conference we co-hosted there last autumn with Norway and Ukraine, is more urgent than ever. We will continue to work with Ukrainian forces through Operation Unifier, which has already trained tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. And once a just peace is secured, Canada stands at the ready to work with our partners around the world to provide Ukraine the security it needs for the peace to last, allowing it to recover, rebuild, and prosper. Regardless of the great distance separating our two countries, Canada knows this is a war that we cannot afford to ignore. I know the stakes. Canadians know the stakes. All of you around this table know the stakes. And most of all, Ukrainians know the stakes. This is a war of aggression on Ukraine's people, culture, identity, and very existence. But it's also a war on our way of life. It's a war on democracy, on the rule of law, on self-determination, a war on justice, and a war on truth. At this critical moment, I think of the words of the great Ukrainian poet, Taras Shevchenko, whose works have been echoed by millions of Ukrainians as a source of inspiration. You must fight on, you will triumph. God is helping, leading. At your back are justice, glory, and sacred freedom. That excerpt was proudly recited in Independence Square by Serhiy Nihoyan, the first martyr of the Revolution of Dignity, shortly before he was killed. And 11 years later, it continues to ring true. Ukrainians will triumph because Ukrainians are fighting for what is right. But they cannot and should not do it alone. It's up to all of us in this room and around the world to meet this moment as well. And we can't wait. The moment to stop this war of aggression, the moment to defend democracy, the moment to stand for our shared values is now. So let us seize it. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. Slava Ukraini.
Дякуємо, шановний пане прем'єр-міністре. А зараз я хотів би передати слово його високоповажності